Ingram Smith, Bud Elliott, back again for another episode of the Nolecast. Bud, it's a 1-0 episode of the Nolecast. Great for Florida State to be able to start a season without a loss. We didn't spend a whole lot of time in the incident on Saturday. We won't spend a whole lot of time purely reviewing Duquesne. In fact, we're going to intentionally go kind of macro and in a different direction just to have a little bit of variety out there for you, the listener. But do want to get your thoughts on what you saw on Saturday. Before I do that, I will thank our friends at Tarpon Cellars. Had an opportunity to meet with those guys on Saturday, have lunch with them, and the CEO literally told me that he had a guy walk up to him and said, "Hey, I haven't even told you the story, bud." Said, "Hey, I bought a bunch of this wine. Are you familiar with this podcast?" And he was like, "Yeah, I know those guys. I'm familiar with the podcast." He took out his phone. It was like a $911 order of Tarpon Cellars based off Nolecast listenership. So that's not a bad way to have a little bit of marketing success make its way directly back to one of the presidents of the operation. So to whoever that was, much appreciated.
Fantastic. That is awesome, man. It does feel good to be 1-0. 1-0. It just feels better. And I think there's something to it. Like if you're not a program that is dominant right now, and FSU is not really dominant, having a nice little warm-up game is nice. Did you catch what Jim Harbaugh did with his quarterbacks, by the way?
Yes, I did. The alternate
starts.
Yes, alternate starts. Get everybody occasion to put their best out there, as though we're producing a Broadway show or something like that. But yeah,
I mean, it's kind of genius in that most likely it causes McNamara not to transfer because he's already locked in. He's playing 2 games. And then it gives you an excuse to start McCarthy going forward if he goes off against Hawaii, which I think is the worst defense I've ever power rated since I've been doing this. Literally, like, shout out to my former podcast partner on Barton and Bud, Barton Simmons. Hawaii dropping 65, or excuse me, Vanderbilt dropping 65 on Hawaii out on the island on Saturday night. That was, yeah. Anyway, I don't know really where I was going with that, but yeah. If you have these warm-up games, it allows you to work through some stuff. It's not quite so concerning. There are some guys who played Saturday who are making their first starts ever for the Noles. And if they played like that against LSU, it's probably not good. And some of those guys, if they play like that against LSU, it's probably great. But maybe there's some first-game jitters that you can attribute some of the play of some of these dudes who, quite honestly, have had decent fall camps and maybe didn't play quite so well in that game against Duquesne. I thought you hit a lot of really good points on the instant, so we're not going to belabor that and go over a bunch of stuff. But there's a couple kids I wanted to hit on. First, we do want to give a shout out to our partner, Legendary Home Loans. Chad and Shannon just do an awesome job. The diehardest of diehard Nole fans. They are all about it. We text all day, and they just love it. 844 FSU Loan is the number to call. I've done it twice. 400 plus Nolecast listeners have made that call now. Find out why. It's always a great time to buy a home. If you find the right one for you, you got to go get it. You got to get a loan that's great for you. They're going to get you the best possible loan with great customer service as well. And hey, I mean, 400 Nolecast listeners can't be wrong. You should see our FedEx budget for these shirts. It's serious. On our re-up, we're gonna have to build that in. No, but we're really happy to continue to partner with those guys, and we love what they bring to the show. I wanted to talk about. Well, I thought Dennis Briggs, he was kind of quiet on the stat sheet, but that's a nice presence to have out there, man. But Jared Verse is the guy I wanted to talk about tonight. Just a really, I know we got a lot of buzz on Twitter today from some of these NFL draft scouts, and I don't necessarily totally disagree. He's going to give up some runs because the technique is not totally there yet. The fundamentals, the understanding of exactly what he has to do in the defense. And I think against some of the better offensive tackles, he may get stymied a little bit if they have good counters, right? I want to see how his counter moves are. But he is just height, weight, speed, hustle. Like that guy's got a motor too. He is going hard often, and he's going to mess some people up. I am very interested to see, and we're not going to totally do an LSU preview tonight, but I'm interested to see how LSU's freshman left tackle handles him if he gets put over him, or honestly any of the defensive ends. If you put Briggs over him, McClendon is a little smaller, but I saw that kid. He's a really good recruit, and he's starting for LSU in the Superdome as a true freshman at left tackle. But when we had him down there at the Future 50 event last year, he did struggle a little bit with size. It wasn't really the speed off the edge. It was these guys who had power, who could bull him a little bit. And whether you're supposed to bull the guy or not, that's an interesting question. But FSU does have some speed on the edge, but they really have some size on the edge, and I'm pretty encouraged to see that. Offensive line, they played a lot of combos, man. A whole lot. You had Bless Harris right tackle. You had Bless Harris left tackle. You had, how many different guys snapped the ball? 4? So, Gibbons, Schrader, the walk-on, whose name I forget, apologize,
yep.
and Washington.
And your starter, yeah.
Yeah. I wasn't really – I was not impressed with the game that Bless Harris had. And if there's a dude you want to write off something and say, hey, maybe this is first game jitters, right? You've never played in a stadium like this. You played at Lamar, not Florida State. But I know he didn't grade out very well in the various services that give gradings. I don't know what he graded on FSU's internal grades. I'm not trying to dog a kid, but that's got to get better. On the other hand, I was actually encouraged by Turntine. I know everybody's clowning him on Twitter for that spin move block, which, okay, I probably deserved if you think we need to be clowning guys for one play. But that's a decent performance by him. You have a lot of size up front. I don't know what combo they're going to roll out for LSU. It concerns me a little bit that you are having to play this many combos this early, largely out of necessity with the injury stuff. So that's a concern. LSU is going to have to try to figure that out, and we'll see how well these guys communicate. It's a concern for me because I'm sure you have a lot of stuff that you've been repping that you want to roll out for LSU. And as an offensive lineman, you do kind of want to know who the guy is next to you and have some level of trust. They're not really choosing to rotate. They're kind of rotating out of necessity to try to figure out who the best 5 are until Maurice Smith gets back. Now, Maurice was listed on the depth chart as a potential for this week. I'm a little skeptical given the whole segment we're going to do next about LSU's depth chart and just kind of a quick look at what those guys have. They do have some real beasts in the middle with him, but people have seen him. He's not on crutches anymore. So that's certainly an encouraging sign. I would say the other thing I take home, and you hit on this in the instant too, man, but I'm not really in love with what you have at corner right now without Amarion. I'm not convinced. Look, Jerry Jones may have taken a big step forward in fall camp. One game does not define him, okay? If you put aside the whole targeting penalty, he's not terrible in this one. I'm not saying he was good, but he wasn't terrible, at least upon rewatch. He wasn't getting burned a whole lot. There's some stuff I think that are just completions that he allows that are kind of within the design of the scheme to allow. The problem is he could take a big step from where he was last year and still not be good. And you may need good in this game given LSU's depth chart. So those are kind of my thoughts, from that game. People want us to go all in on the conversation about the backup quarterback, and in the comments, hey, talk about the backup quarterback. I don't know, man.
I think that discussion was had. I think it was had in the position preview, and I think it was had again on the instant reaction. And at this point, you just spiking the ball, in my opinion.
100%. Do you have the LSU depth chart we can pull up?
I don't have it in front of me, but I did want to just devote a couple minutes to it again. This is by no means our LSU preview, but
I looked at it the other day.
Yep.
Here we go. It is, well, apologies. We were really quality podcasting. I should have had this. There we go. All right. So a couple things I remember about these guys as recruits, things I know. I'll throw some at you. Jaden Daniels did not have very good numbers at Arizona State. Arizona State was a dumpster fire. Obviously, they were pretty happy to see him go. If you guys remember the whole players celebrating when he left video, part of that may just be because of how much his mom was around the program and how awkward of a situation that was. But he does have some mobility that maybe Garrett Nussmeier, the other QB, does not have. Brian Kelly today, this is Monday night, said that he's not going to announce a starter. He thinks it might be a schematic advantage. My thought is if you're playing Daniels, and again, like he might be a lot better than I think. We don't really know. He's not terrible, but he certainly hasn't been good so far at Arizona State. It might be because, like the Noles, the Tigers have some offensive line questions. So that just seeing him potentially atop the projected depth chart there, that kind of gave me not pause, but interesting. Running back to me is also really interesting. So John Emery, who I think is the most talented back on their roster, is suspended for this game. The two backs who are being kind of projected as your potential starters, Noah Cain and Armani Goodwin. So Goodwin's a little smaller, right? A little shorter. Cain's a bigger back, 225. Cain had a really serious injury at Penn State. And I like Noah Cain a lot. I've known him for a while. He was a Baton Rouge kid, Louisiana kid. Then he moved to Texas, then to IMG. And I've seen him play quite a bit of ball. And I really liked him pre-injury, but he was not the same guy after his injury. We'll have to see how well he plays for them, at running back, because is he starting if Emery's healthy? If Emery's not suspended? I don't know. Receiver, that's scary. That's one of the best receiving cores you're going to see all year. Okay?
Yeah, it's scary. And I guess there's two different trains of thought as far as the decision you make at quarterback. I would be inclined, if I was Kelly, to play Daniels simply because, like, if it's not there immediately, he can buy you an extra second. And this wide receiver with an extra second against Florida State's defensive backs is certainly a scary proposition. They're exceptional. I mean, Keyshawn Butte is going to be a top 10 pick in the league. That's a dude that's got 10-year NFL vet written all over him. And like you said, the other player is pretty damn good as well. It wasn't just Jones that had a couple moments that were frightening out there. Again, we're making a whole lot out of a couple different plays against Duquesne, but when that's
we haven't
all you
seen
have
anything
to go
for
off
Vance
of,
yet.
Yeah,
that makes me think he's good. So
Has
far, if I'm grading the trade, Brownlee for Vance,
yeah,
advantage Louisville.
And Knowles makes some nice plays and is aggressive, but also has a couple plays on the Duquesne tape that aren't brilliant either. So look, first game, things get worked out hopefully, but they're ourselves and every other people that talk about this game are going to discuss this matchup in depth because it's as lopsided as there is to be found on either side.
No doubt about it. Tight ends, they feel pretty good about the tight end spot. We'll see. Taylor is really big for them. I mean, 6'7", 250. So, that's an interesting guy. Jack Betch is a dude they list at receiver, but he's sort of a tight end body, 6'2", 215-ish. We'll kind of see how he factors into the mix. Offensive line for them, just quick thoughts again here on the LSU depth chart. O-line is a question. So Will Campbell, true freshman, starting next to him. Miles Frazier, who is a redshirt, a redshirt junior now from FIU, who was a guy who was pursued in the transfer portal by some schools. FSU for a little bit. Garrett Dellinger is now going to play center. He had, I think, some starts at tackle prior. Anthony Bradford obviously has started a couple games for them. Probably shouldn't say the word obviously because it's a crutch, but also it's not obvious to people who don't follow LSU. And then Cam Wire is a dude who has played 2 seasons worth of games and has 10 starts for them. They're kind of curious as to whether Tremont Shorts is going to get in there. He was a transfer from East Tennessee State. As we know, not all transfers work out. We'll see kind of how he factors in. But their offensive line, I will say, is certainly healthier than FSU's has been throughout camp. They seem to have avoided the injury bug more than the Noles did. Of course, that's not a criticism of FSU strength staff or anything. You took some guys in the portal who had a known injury history like Lyles, and you had several guys coming off either off-season surgery or certainly a pretty serious injury to end last year. All right, so I think LSU's defense is probably a pretty good bet, better than its offense. If their O-line is really good, if they got a run game, then, well, we may have a sad Monday show. Xavier Hill, Cardell Thomas, they got some backups there. D-line, this is interesting. So they're going to play a 3-down front, but it's basically like kind of 4 big dudes there. Ali Gay is one of the better defensive ends I think you're going to see on the schedule this year. He's probably an NFL guy. Jaquelin Roy is also like on a lot of these early NFL draft boards. We'll see. I mean, I think he's pretty good. Mason Smith is formerly like the number 1 or number 2 defensive tackle recruit in the country. He was a true freshman last year. That's kind of scary. If he plays to his potential, that's a major problem. Of course, we don't know if he will. Last year, he was big, but not really effective. He looks like he's in pretty good shape. Behind that, though, they have some really nice depth. And they got Guillory there, who's played about a season's worth of games. Bakai Wingo, they took, who was one of the best guys in the SEC East. They took him from Missouri, and he might not even start. Savion Jones has played some for them. Quincy Wiggins is an athletic freak. That's a name you'll probably know in like 2 or 3 years. I don't know how much he's going to play like immediately. And then at their jack position, which is basically like their other defensive end, BJ Ojolari is also really, really talented. So their front is going to cause you some problems. It's really just how many problems will it cause you? And can you keep this score low enough to where you continue to run the ball with Jordan? If this becomes a track meet, or if you get down, you're probably going to stay down. All right. Mike Jones Jr. at linebacker for them didn't play much last year, but he came over from Clemson. They had a kid last year who really broke out for them. It turned out to be a stud. I think their linebacker is okay. I think FSU is probably better there. DB is absolutely a question, man. Like, it could be really good, but it can also be very sketch. We don't know. Like, there's questions about almost all of these guys who they took in the portal, and we'll just have to see how well they play together. How do they mesh? Like, how healthy are some of these dudes? We'll see. I'm somewhat skeptical about their DBs, but you also got to see if and that's mainly their corners. Their safeties, I think, with Jay Ward and Major Burns, as well as the Arkansas kid they took, not too bad. Greg Brooks maybe starting at nickel for them. He's got a whole lot of starts, so obviously he's a guy who could go to the NFL at some point if he runs well.
Another transfer kid. It's really remarkable how many of these kids are transfer kids, and even that transfers
on both teams
within the SEC East, or within the SEC itself, is the Brooks kids from Arkansas, the kid you just referenced there from Missouri. It's just they've been doing a lot of work.
Yeah, I mean, this is really, really interesting. I had a guy text me the other night. He said, "Hey, does FSU have a new starter at all of their skill positions on offense, despite returning basically all 5 starters?" And I thought about it. I was like, okay, so they lost Parchment and Corbin. So Corbin was technically the starter. So I kind of disagree with the idea that they lost or they return all 5 starters. Parchment really wasn't a starter, I don't think, but he part-time starter. It's kind of amazing that basically all the skill core has been replaced with external guys. I mean, Trayshawn Ward plays. Pokey Wilson, I think, will play some. Biscuit got a lot of snaps in that game. Did you get him, or did I get him in the snap count draft?
I believe you had him.
I like the sound of that, man. I don't think that's going to hold, obviously. I think it'll probably be more like when McDonald gets back healthy, he'll play more. But let me see. Did I get him? No, you have him.
Okay.
Okay.
Nice.
Damn it. All right. So, yeah, that's kind of our briefish thoughts on the LSU depth chart. A lot of transfers, man. And I think you can make a living with transfers if your goal is to, make a bowl game, to get better as a team. I don't think you can build like a national title contender solely off transfers, but that's not really the goal right now. The goal is to sort of tread water and get better as you try to get better recruiting high schoolers.
Pardon me as I'm dealing with some lighting issues here, but yeah, it's an interesting look at a depth chart that will, like I said, go into much more detail later on in the week. But
You ever heard the term percussive maintenance?
I have not heard that. No.
My dad used it. It basically just means you're banging on something, right? Percussive maintenance. I think that's what my son was doing to my rope lights. Remember the other night they were not working, and I looked like I had no backlighting here in the studio. So
Yeah.
I dug in there today. I was like, who's in here? Toy hammer could be related.
Working
Possibly.
it out. Well,
Yeah.
good for him.
Speaking of working out, man, why is it always important to keep recruiting some of these kids in the transfer portal era? They might transfer back to you.
Might
right?
transfer back to you. So Florida State picks up a 4-star running back from Penn State today. Interesting addition that Bud was referencing there. Keziah Holmes, I certainly remember his recruitment, and and that's obviously that room is pretty rich as we saw last Saturday. But that's a great pickup, and credit to Florida State's behind the scenes crew for being persistent there. It sounds like. Within the law, of course.
Correct. Yes. Look, Keziah Holmes was in the class of 2020, right? And pretty good athlete out of Cocoa. We saw him. We liked him. Obviously, Juwan Sider at Penn State does a really nice job recruiting. They beat out a couple schools. FSU was involved there. He does have some family connections to the Noles as well. FSU is out of scholarships, and currently Penn State is loaded at running back. So he was not going to get the play there. Like, this is not a shot at Holmes. I think this is a good addition. You guys will remember about 4 years ago, we told you this kid named Trayshawn Ward was a really good walk-on, and not to worry that FSU did not sign a scholarship back in the recruiting class. Some people called us crazy and that we were excuse-making. Now, that staff ultimately got fired, but we were not wrong about the Trayshawn Ward thing. With Keziah Holmes, I think you could have a similar situation here. FSU has had a nice history of success under Norvell so far with transfer running backs. Who knows? Like, you could lose Trey Benson after this year, right? He's technically draft eligible, I think, if he goes nuts, and maybe if he were to run some kind of insane time. He's a good athlete, versatile guy. He can catch the ball. He also played some corner and safety in high school too, so he was definitely thought of as a two-way guy at times. I believe they want him for the running back room, which at least that's what I was told. He does have to come in as a walk-on, from what I understand, in the first semester, simply because they're out of scholarships. But maybe he'll have a chance to earn his way on to the team next year. Ingram, just got to earn it, right?
Maybe he will have that chance. Yes, of course. Nice addition.
Within
You're right. It's a room that you might see some defections from, and you just can't have too many good running backs. And obviously, that's kind of that's what Mike likes to lean his hat on, is being able to get that position involved in as many ways as possible when he's kind of operating his what we believe to be his optimal offense anyway. So nice pickup there. Good to see. And you're right. All the confidence in the world that ultimately that young man has a chance to earn a scholarship in time. People that we're so fortunate to be able to partner with and earn their business over time. Charlie Park, the best rooftop bar in Tallahassee, without a doubt. And we're just always so fortunate to be able to pair with the broader Madison social community. And one thing that we've always talked about, Bud, is that we love Madso, but that township is pretty damn great too. And my understanding is that Brooks Koepka agrees with us and spent a good amount of time at township over the last weekend. So it's a popular place regardless of where you go. Can't get any better than that setup there, crossing the IM fields with township and Madso. And then Charlie Park is just a place where you go up the elevator, walk out the elevator, and with all due respect, you're not really sure if you're still in Tallahassee. So great place for us to be able to partner with, and a big thanks to those guys.
By the way, the Madison Social Bourbon Street bar crawl route has been posted on Twitter. If you go to their Twitter at Madison Social, pretty cool. It is, how many stops is this? Eight stops, I think it is. Only planning on stops 1 through 6. There are 8 stops. They're only going to stop 1 through 6. I may attend this. We will see. I have some stuff to do. This is Saturday, by the way. It's not Sunday, so it is the day before. if you guys get in. I think you get in Saturday, I believe.
Get in Saturday, early Saturday. Yes,
early Saturday. Well, hey, you can't drink all day if you don't start early, right?
That's what I tell myself. Yes.
Oh well, actually, hold on. So stop one is at the Carousel Bar. My wife loves Carousel Bar. We will probably go to at least one stop on this. Hell, we may open that place up. Anyway, yeah, it should be a lot of fun. We may stop in for a little bit. Obviously, traveling out there with a bunch of other Noles is going to be an absolute blast in New Orleans. Just if you're going to have to do a neutral site, with all due respect to where you live and where I live, New Orleans is a much better neutral site city to visit than Orlando or Atlanta.
With all due
I'll have
respect,
some good spots for you guys. Like next year when LSU comes to Orlando, we'll have some good spots. The restaurant scene here is not quite as good as New Orleans, in my opinion, at least. But,
it's close.
I've got 2 kids under 3. I don't really do the bar scene all that much when I'm home. So, what else we can talk about tonight? Anyway, yeah, look, Holmes gives him a nice, versatile guy. He can catch football. He's got some moves. He should slide into the rotation fairly well. Probably needs to put on a little bit of bulk. I haven't seen him in about a year, so I don't know exactly how big he is currently, but he is officially enrolled, or at least in the student directory, as our Chris Hummer of 24/7 Sports pointed out today. And yeah, that's a quality thing there. We heard that was happening for a while, and it looks like it officially is. So very encouraging. We also got some really cool news coming for the podcast, so make sure you stay tuned to our preview episode. We actually might do a preview and prediction episode and a special guest interview episode this week. So you might get a triple episode or a 3-episode week this week. Pretty encouraging.
That would, yeah, you'll have the potential of 6 Nolecasts in 8 days at some point or something like that. So yeah,
God, that's a lot of Nolecast. I don't know if the internet, they better have 5G or
absolutely. And none of them were shot at a bar at Chica. So, we earned them all. Definitely.
Yes.
Anywho. All right. So Bud and I have intentionally waited to have this conversation until after August 15th, because that is a definitive point in time when you're talking about leaving the ACC. And I'm not about to say that Florida State's going to leave the ACC 30 seconds from now. So let me be delicate with my phrasing there. But I do think that we can offer you some facts that I don't think are otherwise out there, and do so in a manner where it doesn't look like we're trying to, uber clickbait on YouTube with FSU leaving the ACC question and Bud's eyes big. Yeah, exactly. You got it. Thumbnail that, please. So I believe, and in fact, I'm all but positive of this, that there's been more effort and institutional focus on what Florida State's conference alignment will ultimately be, probably in the last 4 months, than there ever has been, and perhaps more so even with a combined time period. Florida State, to my understanding, has received 2 significant donations towards the football program. Now, Florida State's boosters of significance operate much differently than others, so you didn't see this on Twitter, and nobody's out, thumping their chest about individual donations that they've made. But I do believe that Florida State is in a aggressive review of finances with intention of having the war chest to pay the exit fee, not the grant of rights buyout, but the exit fee, to have that liquid in as soon a period of time as possible. Now, did I just give you groundbreaking information? No, you probably could have guessed that to some extent, but from an institutional, when you just evaluate who is involved in this process and who is intimately involved in this process, I think Florida State as an institution is as prepared and is as close to leaving a conference as you possibly can be, without actually, sending a letter to Greensboro or whatever. Now, does that mean a hill of beans if you still got to come up with $500 million and some of these other things that are involved? I wouldn't totally dismiss it, but obviously there's more than just Florida State's want when evaluating what's at play here.
I think that's fair. And really, what you're talking about here is controlling the controllables, right? If an opportunity came up to join the SEC or the Big Ten, you don't want to just hem and haw. I don't know if we really have the money to do it, right? I mean, like basically, it comes down to you got to be really sure that the ACC is not going to work out, which I think different people, like reasonable people, can agree depending on your definition of workout, and of course, your definition of what time frame. You would need to be reasonably sure that you would have an invite to the SEC or to the Big Ten. You would need to be able to pay the buyout immediately, which, again, as you said, I think August 15th was the deadline if you wanted to declare that you were leaving for this year. So we got at least a year to think about this, right? Like the FSU is not leaving the ACC tomorrow. That we're pretty damn sure about that. So at least not to play in some other league in 2023. And then you would probably have to have some sort of out of the grant of rights or some sort of way to, like, you would need some kind of war chest of money. I don't know if that's like a bond issue or something crazy, some kind of crazy financing, a bond issue, something that would allow you to withstand, I don't know. I mean, at least 2, maybe more years of a legal fight with the ACC in hopes that they eventually just let you settle it like they did with Maryland, or that the league dissolves. But you need to have long range planning on this to where you can somehow secure operating capital for, I think, like 5 or 6 years. And you need to be right, because if you're wrong and you get the operating capital to secure yourself while you're having this legal fight, and you somehow raise 5 or 6 years worth, and you're wrong, and you don't get out of the ACC with the grant of rights, then you're screwed until 2036. Like that, there's a lot of things that have to happen there for you to win the ACC. But I do think it is prudent for FSU to at least look around, check the couch cushions, see like, hey, should we really be spending the money on this, or can we refi this? Can we refi that? Whatever. 844 FSU loan. Maybe you need to refi your home to check and see if you need to clear up some operating capital for your operation. But I think it's prudent of them to see what they could do.
So something caught my eye last week, and I don't want to be like too conspiratorial or reach at things, but one of the advantages of having Mike Alford, and you hear this, is that he's like wildly exploratory in his thoughts, and he is aggressive at exploring any option possible. So I'm minding my business on LinkedIn because that's where I spend a lot of time for my job, and I saw saw a pretty interesting post, but and I'll just bring this to your attention. Mike Alford went and visited the James Andrews Clinic and also the real estate arm of it that's attached to it. I'd keep an eye out on things like that and what Michael Alford wants to ultimately explore. I don't know anything,
That's a
but
pretty big operation they have.
that was a very interesting pairing. You've got a real estate company that is involved in the medical field, and maybe that's a way that Florida State could explore some kind of public-private partnership or something like that with some of these projects that they're trying to otherwise explore. So I'm not going to spend a whole lot of this. There won't be the LinkedIn 5 minutes on the Nolecast every week or something like that. But that is something that caught my attention. And
Do we have
like
the
I said,
article? Like, if you shoot me the article link, I can I can share it on screen.
yeah, let me pull it up there real quickly here. This too is
All right.
good podcasting.
This is great podcasting.
I'm
I found it here.
Okay.
Uh,
I'll put it in your
quick
DMs otherwise.
little. It was already in the DMs. Remember, we figured out that's where it was.
That's true. That's true.
Share screen, share a tab. You currently have 74 Chrome tabs open, so that's quite a few Chrome tabs. Wow, I'm gonna need to delete some of these later tonight. All right, so I'm gonna take that off. Cool. Whatever. I'm going to go full screen on this. So what are we looking at here, man? This is an article showing Andrew's Research and Education Foundation's post. For visiting us at our campus, our team is honored to speak with you and show you the way behind the scenes of the Andrews way. Like, that could be nothing, but I mean, it could be something for sure.
Could be nothing. Could be absolutely nothing. But the other partnership there is with a real estate group that wants to be aggressive in some of their offerings and their appearances. And so I think it's a interesting combination and just something to put a pin in.
I mean, if you had a friendly real estate group, there's a lot of stuff you could do. Like, I mean, hell, they could build you a building and then you lease it from them or something, right?
You could explore Florida State. Here's what Bud Knight's point is. Florida State's going to do everything it possibly can to explore where there's existing pools of money and where you don't have to commit as much money in the next 4 or 5 years because you want to be liquid for an exit fee. And maybe it's through a interesting real estate perspective. Maybe it's through donations that would have otherwise gone to other causes or are more aggressively coming into the football program. But I can tell you behind the scenes, I think Florida State is aggressively preparing to leave the conference in as expedient a manner as possible. And I know others have talked about this, but the comments that you got from the president, you and I talked about this while we were down in Florida. Those are really more almost what you get from a booster president rather than a guy who you just picked from Harvard. I'll quote him real quickly here regarding Florida State's conference affiliation. It's something I'm spending a lot of time on and we're getting a lot of help with. We're going to try to do anything we can to think about how we remain competitive. Florida State is expected to win, and we're going to be very aggressive. I would take the president of the school at face and know that that's exactly what they're doing.
I totally agree with you, man. It doesn't mean that it's going to work out. This doesn't mean that it's actually going to work and that they're going to be able to leave the ACC. It also doesn't mean the ACC is 100% doomed, although I think we both agree it's not looking great.
It's probably like 92% doomed. Yeah.
Yeah. They're not Duquesne doomed, but they're more like Louisiana, Georgia Tech doomed. To go back to our win shares episode. By the way, speaking of ACC and ACC Network, tactical glasses or tactical razor? This was a good question on the Noles 24/7 message board the other day. I was like, I'm going tack shaver. Like if I ever rob a bank or something, I need to quickly lose the beard. I need something that can rip through this bad boy.
Yes,
quickly.
While water's falling down from a gutter spout above you, you can still shave. Yeah, absolutely. I guess that I threw a tweet out there after the first quarter praising the ACC. At least where I was getting like Cheez-It, and I was at least getting actual brands running ads as opposed to the Irish chopper or food chopper or whatever we had last year, and tactical shavers and sunglasses that come with their own unique eagle screech every time you wear them. But yeah, so my point there being was that evidently by the third or fourth quarter, depending on which market you were on, perhaps the ACC fell back to some of the old tried and true sales prospectus that they had left over from last year. So what a funny conference and what a funny network.
I was actually watching on a not Russian illegal stream, right? Which I definitely don't have to watch all my college football games on Saturday. And I just there's so many pop-ups. I just you got to keep killing them. So during the commercials, I just let the pop-ups run, and I didn't actually get to see a whole lot of commercials. But it was chicken nuggets.
Boneless wings, all sorts of horrible.
I understood why they did it because that's like the social media FSU put out. They were playing off it. It's like it's a 56 to
Yeah, I mean it's something
they could win that game by 100 if they really felt like it.
Something the producer found on social media on Wednesday and decided that hey, we got 5 minutes if and when we'll need to fall back on it. So
at least Roddy Jones does his homework. Like he is prepared, knows the team pretty well. Like has a pretty good eye for personnel. I feel like he's He's a good announcer.
Now, Roddy Jones is a guy that turns in a legitimate effort on each game that he does, and I don't necessarily shriek when I see him seeing a game like perhaps I do others. But whether it's 5 minutes or 20 minutes talking about the Noles, we'd always encourage you to call our friend at Matt Lewis. And as we've had 2 other people reach out to us this week via DM, if you'd prefer a personal 3-person. Damn, I'm stuttering like hell here. If you prefer me to offer a third-party introduction, I'm killing it. Please do
that's
DM
all,
us.
folks.
Yeah. And we'll reach out to Matt as we've done with many other companies, and in fact sat in on a conference call with Congruity and my company today. So congruityhr.com is the website. Hit us up for a third-party introduction if that's your reference or if that's your preference, and we'll go from there.
You got anything else tonight, man? I hope the ACC has a quality showing this week in the non-conference. North Carolina, now an underdog to App State. Probably don't want. I think I saw they were 6-21 in Power 5 non-conference openers since the start of the playoff era to open the year. That seems insane. It's really, really bad. Like David Hales had some good stuff about this on Twitter. Like, some of these Big Ten teams are not better than ACC teams, but they get a lot more interest because they do schedule cupcakes early, and the voters just, Pavlov's dog. Oh, that's a 0 in the loss column. Yeah. Move them up, right?
They're 4-1. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so you get these ranked teams, whereas these ACC teams are actually playing non-conference opponents and then losing to them more often than not. Losing, not always losing, but oftentimes losing. And they're, it's just not. It's not a way to draw interest in the conference when all of a sudden you're in week 3 and you only have 2 ranked teams.
No, I think a lot of it's been a byproduct of these teams trying to, raise their appeal. Also, the checks associated with some of these games. But if I'm the ACC, if you lose some of these more competitive ones, or if you're Miami or Florida State, but UNC doesn't need to be losing to App State. That's ridiculous, and you really just need to avoid the the horrible embarrassment / black eye on the conference that people are still talking about 8 or 9 weeks later on, if whatever the current iteration of college football tonight is, or whatever the show is that you used to get the great Lou Holtz as a judge with Mark May, and really just 10:45 p.m. content that was spectacular on a Saturday.
That was a hell of a show. I like the robes that they wore for the judgment stuff.
A lot of production value. Absolutely.
I actually saw Lou Holtz a couple months ago. I was driving Cooper Patagna, who works for us 24/7, back to the airport from, I think, either a 7-on or an Under Armour camp we had here in Orlando. And I popped in to Buffalo Wild Wings to do some work, and Lou Holtz was there, just chilling. I think he had some white wine. It's like afternoon, just enjoying himself. Good time, like nice guy.
Oh.
I haven't seen Mark May in a long time.
Yeah, Mark May, Lou Holtz, truly a dynamic pairing on that show. Brilliant as it was. Oh.
Was it his car or Corso's car who got hit by the lightning at Virginia Tech?
Corso's car got nuked at Virginia Tech.
Yeah. That's a good video if you guys have ever seen that.
Yep. Very cool. Very cool. And
awesome.
It was during the Mike Vick days. Truly electric. So all right, y'all. We'll be back with a LSU preview and perhaps even more, according to Bud from earlier in the podcast. So we'll have at least one more show for you. This just wanted to do something a little bit different than 40 minutes on Duquesne. Hopefully, y'all enjoyed some of the rambling nature of it. But we'll be back with a full preview. Hope to see as many of y'all as possible this weekend in New Orleans. Thank you, as always, for the support of the Nolecast. And until next time, this has been tonight's episode.